right. Well, thank you two so much for joining me today on Infamous Horrors. Christine, this is for you. How did you get involved with this film? Because there's so much depth in this with the characters and the plot and the subplots in this. So, how did this all come to fruition for you?
Is that a question for me? Sorry.
Yes, for Christine.
Oh,
Yes.
cool. I actually started writing it. I wrote a short film before I wrote the feature. Co-wrote it with my friend and colleague Camille Gladney. And when I wrote it, the beats were four girls that met up at a motel, and they run into a mermaid, and it was very, very surfacey. And the rest of it came through a lot of Camille's research. So she learned about Erzulie, who is actually a real goddess, a Haitian voodoo goddess. She's the protector of women and children. And from there, we kind of just delved right in. I've always been somebody who wants to make films that say something. And it's always fun to be able to hide it into a genre that seems unassuming. And I really wanted to do something like what Get Out did, which is make a genre film, but speak a lot about societal issues. So,
yeah, and I picked up on a lot of those tones on the characters and how they were written as well in the dialogue in the film. So this is for you, Leah. What really got you interested in the first part to join this? Because like me and Christine mentioned, there's a lot going on in this film, and there's just so much to really break into. So what really pushed you into this project?
Well, if it wasn't for Ari, aka Diana, the beautiful actress herself, she was the one that introduced me to the role of Erzulie. And when they sent me the script, I'd actually auditioned for Wendy as well and Erzulie. However, I'm much more Erzulie. I've always embodied somewhat of a goddess type of attitude, especially with calling people peasants. That's a weird thing that I do a lot. But the depth of the character is what I really liked. I liked that she commanded presence where she was. She was respected, but then she was also loved. So that is something that completely drew me to wanting to really pursue this character.
Right. And Christine, before you hopped on, me and Leah were talking that I was surprised, for a short film like 85 minutes, every character on this was so well written. There wasn't one that stood out as shorthanded. So how did that writing process come about?
sure.
To make sure every character had their own story and spin to this tale.
Yeah, so I think we started off with the core message that we wanted each of the women to embody. So mental health is a huge issue that we talk about in the film without talking about it. Each of the women represent a way that we as humans deal with trauma. So A for Ari stands for, sorry, A is, what was A again, Leila? I totally forgot. It just,
I wasn't even told these.
okay.
This is
No, okay. Okay, I remember now. So F, let's just start with F and I'll remember. Faye, F is fear. And it's just being scared of your problems. And A, which is avoidance with Ari, is not deal with your problems by manifesting it in other ways like drinking a lot or being hypersexual and stuff like that. So Ari complements Faye to an extent. V, which is Violet, vengeance. She's about, revenge and gonna be mad and passionate about, messing things up. And then W, Wendy, is wisdom, which is logical and devoid of emotion. So these are different ways in which we deal with trauma. And so from that core, we built each of everybody's beats. And it was a lot in the beginning of, we did a lot of outlining and trying so that we made sure that everybody had an arc, and it was nice and buttoned up all the way towards the end. Everybody had a period of growth. So I think what you're catching on is that every character grows towards the end. Faye, becomes a bigger, more confident, version of herself. Violet learns to come out of her shell, and instead of being passionate about, you know, messing things up, she falls in love and finds a way to express that. And Wendy learns that, you know, her friends are the most important, you know, so there's all these different arcs, which is super fun. I think that's what you're catching on.
Yeah. And another thing I got from this is, I don't know if I brought it up before, but it was kind of like Slumber Party Massacre, in my opinion. Like when me and Leah were talking before, I kind of got that vibe from it, that it was like Party Massacre with the mermaid.
Yes. So I actually haven't seen the Slumber Party Massacre. However, Slumber Party is definitely an inspiration. I am a 90s kid, and I grew up loving, some of my best memories were going to my friend's place and for a slumber party and watching a film that my parents probably would not have ever let me watch. And
Right. I was that friend when I was young, like, hey, can you
Yeah.
rent this one?
Exactly. And then connecting with like your close group of friends and just like hanging out and enjoying a movie and popcorn and, you know, and things like that. And so that was my hope for the next generation of women and men to be able to go and do the same thing, like with their friends and enjoy a movie together. And then later on, maybe 20 years from there, where they are jaded from adulting, they will get those group of friends back again and be like, wasn't it great when we didn't have to worry about bills? And like, just that those same feelings are attached to the time they watched the film. So.
And Leah, how was it working with the ensemble cast in this? Because, I mean, they were all great, but for you to play a goddess on set, that had to be amazing, working with this ensemble cast that you had to be around.
Yeah. So in terms of the girls, it's interesting because some of the girls are complete opposite of their character. Like Ari and Diana, the actress who played Ari, complete different people. So it's when you see them in their character and then you see them outside of it, we all bonded in our own weird, like, we're stuck in this place, we can't leave way. So if we're all going to die, we're going to die together, ride or die. And it literally became that. It became more than just an on-screen relationship. It was an off-screen sistership that we all developed. We would hang out together. We would go have lunch together. We built, I wouldn't say our little clique, because we talked to everybody.
Right.
We were social butterflies. But it was great. The kinship from it, even now, we're still relatively close. We have a group chat that we just spam the hell out of each other all the time with. But yeah, being a goddess on set, but also being my own very own goddess in reality, and just loving everybody. We built a sistership from each and one of those dynamic characters.
Yeah. They lived together for reals on set too. That was on purpose. So it was like, I threw them all on a house and I was like, all right, be friends. And then they did. So my plan worked. Yes.
And this one is for the both of you. That final act was really visually striking. So how was it like performing in that and directing that? Because that was a really tense final act for the film. So how did that whole process come about?
Oh, I'll let
That
Christine take
final
on that.
act was insanely difficult to do because of our location and environmental issues that we were running into. So up to that point, the finale was supposed to have been filmed the first week of our shooting schedule. This was shot in 11 days. And so we had to keep pushing it until the final day, the finale day, because the river that we had written the script for, I'd been there before. And when I was there, the river was only like this deep, which is perfect. And there was a whole beach. But when we arrived, the entire river was flooded. Not only was it flooded, there was no beach because the beach was underwater by the river.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so much of it depended on this fight on the beach. And so we had to push it until the very end. And Mother Nature really pulled a number on us because while we were fighting the light at the very end and finished the finale, the beach reappeared in its entirety. And I'm like, oh, but it was, I would like to say we tried to rehearse it a lot, but we had to throw all of that down the drain because I had to reblock it for what was available space-wise on the beach. And so it was cheated very heavily, hence not having these giant wide ass scenes that I really wanted to. But I think that actually added to it because it gives that, Jaws effect. You don't know where the mermaid's gonna pop out. You don't know spatially where things are. And but it was hard because I thought shooting of May would make the water warm because it's the summer, but it was actually warm during the day and cold as F at night. And so the girls, Leila was half naked basically in the water, and it was really, really, really cold. And all the girls were in there, and it sucked for them. So, Leila, I guess you can speak to it.
I'm like, yeah, it would. Oh gosh, the coldness. So I think I don't remember why there was a point where we were in the water and we were filming and then we had to cut for something. Were you guys just adjusting lights? You had to cut for something. And then, so we got out of the water. And then when we all had to go back in, we were all like, we had that Stewie moment where we're like, like you could just see Stewie, like we all had that moment like, okay. And I had to grunt it. Cause again, like the girls had clothes on and I just had like
prosthetics,
nipple, booby. Yeah. So for me, I was just like, just suck it up. So I had to like do the whole, like scream through the pain thing to acclimate. And then I was like, okay, I'm good and numb. Now we're good. But it was, that day it was crazy, but it was so much fun. The water was like super cold, but I was excited because there was so much going on.
Yeah,
there were so many things. Like we had Isaiah up on like a crane.
Yeah, so Isaiah is Delmar. He's the guy who's he's the last one standing of the little group. So yeah, he was hanging from a wire from an excavator, so that he could be pulled out of the screen, and he's like being floated up with Erzulie's psychological mind powers. And so it was a point where I was wondering where everybody was. I was like, where is Isaiah? He's our stunt person too, Isaiah. And then he's like, hello. He's like pretended in the air. He's like pretending that he's swimming in the air. And we're like, oh, there's Isaiah. So there was just so many elements. And it was also safety aspects too. So I've got a guy suspended in the air. I've got the beach half flooded, so the water is rushing like crazy in the back. I'm shooting at night where there's still creatures. This is a real swamp. So we had a water safety person, and then we had a animal wrangler who would look for alligators, snakes, anything. And then it was really cold, and I had to throw everything I did in rehearsal out the door and come up with an entirely new blocking on the fly. And we had vehicles coming in and stunts, and it was nuts, but we were ready for it because of all the things leading up to it. So honestly, it was scheduled in where it should have been, because by that time we knew what to expect from the river. We had already bonded. We'd been rehearsing, even though like those things got thrown out the door, but because we'd been rehearsing, we could work with each other in a timely, economical manner. And we were invigorated because we knew it was the last day, and thank God. And so everybody came in with this full perfect storm of excitement, and we completed the film in a way like the girls dragging, coming out of the water exhausted, but triumphant. That's how it was for us. Like it was the perfect end to a very difficult shooting journey.
Well, thank you too so much for joining me, and thank you again for hopping on an hour early for me.
No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And congratulations on the film.
Thank you. Yes. Where are you based out of?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Very cool. I believe there's a big mermaid community.
There is.
Yes.
There is. I've heard.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, you two have a lovely week.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Day. You too,
for
hun.
your time.